Hello YouTube. I have a book haul today. This is actually the first book haul video that I've done on this entire channel. And I'm starting off with a bang because I went to Lowry's Books in Three Rivers, which is as good as saying that I went to Three Rivers because there's nothing there in Three Rivers other than Lowry's Books. You know, the guy who runs Lowry's Books is actually the mayor of that city, so I would like to pass the message along to him if he happens to be watching this video or at any other time that he should really just rename the whole city Lowry's Books. Just partially to accurately represent what there is to do in the city, because there's nothing else. There's no parks. There's no, there's a couple of stores, but they're ancillary to the bookstore. And just imagine any map of the county or of the state, the words Lowry's Books would just be on there. It's like free advertising. People using Google Maps, they just see that there's a bookstore there, whether they asked the computer to tell them or not. So I think that would be a really great solution. But all jokes aside, it is a really amazing bookstore. It's a massive, massive bookstore with all kinds of books. There's always something that I find there. I always leave it with like 10 books or something, a huge stack of books. And the crazy thing is that they're all really cheap too. And I'll tell you the prices for these books throughout the video so you can see for yourself. But most books there are only a couple of dollars. Part of what brought me out there this time was because this was their like 31st anniversary sale. 31st anniversary. I wonder if they do it every year. I mean, 31 certainly isn't a round number. So they had this little wheel at the cashier where like you spin the wheel and you get either a discount or something like that. The options were free books, goodie bag, 20% discount, or 10% discount. And I'll tell you which one I got at the end, but that's part of what brought me out there. Yeah, even though there's nothing else to do in Three Rivers, it's definitely worth the drive just for that bookshop alone. So I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 books down here, and I'm going to go through them one by one and tell you all about them, okay? In the order that I picked them off the shelf. So, first would be Tom Brown's School Days. Now, this is a book that I've sort of heard the title of a lot. I don't really know anything about it. I mean, except what can be read off the back, that it's about a young boy in Britain's boarding school era, in the Victorian era. Just his life, sort of a Bildungsroman. And this is a very nice paperback. And it has a lot of great illustrations in it, such as this one. And, sorry, it'll take a second to find an illustration here. This one, profusely illustrated, lots of very good pencil drawing illustrations here. And this is a publisher I don't think I've ever heard of before. It's Papermax? Oh, Macmillan Papermac. Yeah. So I'm very interested in this kind of Victorian literature that's, well, to some extent I'm interested in sort of coming-of-age Victorian literature. I just got done reading Toby Tyler, which is about a young boy who runs away to join the circus, and it wasn't that great, but I'm expecting that this will be a lot better because I've heard the title a lot, so I assume it's a classic. So yeah, Tom Brown's School Days. And this was only $2. So, next book that I found is The Talisman, now a BBC miniseries. And according to the sticker, presented on PBS by WQED Pittsburgh with a grant from the McDonald's Local Restaurant Association. And for free, I even got a business card. If you can see that. Joe Freer, Manager, Bureau of Controller Operations, State Collections Division at the State of Michigan Department of Treasury. I can't find him anywhere online, so I doubt flashing that on screen would dox anybody who's still alive. They might be dead. Maybe that's why this book is here. But it's The Talisman, a book by Sir Walter Scott, which apparently is about the Crusades, and according to the back cover, it's about a crusader knight who has formed a friendship with a Saracen. And, well, it's kind of vague. It says here, now back in the Lionheart's camp, dark treachery is brewing. His wolfhound Roswell begins to bay and growl, and out of the darkness there looms a threatening shadow. So who knows what's going to happen. But I somewhat trust Sir Walter Scott, even though I haven't read much by him. I read some of Ivanhoe, but then I dropped that. That was a long time ago. I should really try it again. And I did read Lady of the Lake, which I had some mixed feelings about. Nevertheless, this book looks interesting. I like the period. I just got done reading some stories about the Crusades. Well, a real-life account of the Crusades. The Fourth Crusade. The Siege of Constantinople. So I guess I've just had the Crusades on the mind recently. Sir Walter Scott tends to be a very long-winded and very descriptive author. But that just means that if you like the book, there's a lot to chew on. And I got this one for only $2. Now, the next book I found is a good one. This one is a Captain Marryat book. I always look for these whenever I go to the bookstore, but I don't always find them. This one is Frank Mildmay. Apparently, it's his first novel. Look at that. It's part of this, Classics of Nautical Fiction series, and it's got this beautiful cover here. It's a painting from 1891, I believe. And, Captain Marryat, he's a nautical fiction author from, the 1800s. He lived a long, full life as a ship captain of a merchant vessel, among other things. I think it was merchants. And he put a lot of that experience into his books, naturally. He's he's definitely the original author of nautical fiction, barring Tobias Smollett, I suppose. Horatio Hornblower and Patrick O'Brian definitely owe a lot to him and his influence. A lot of his books, I've read several of his books before, and I really like them. I read The Pirate and the Three Cutters, which was extremely cheesy, melodramatic, theatrical, whatever word you want to pick. But that one stands a little bit separate from his other books, which are comparatively more down-to-earth. I read Masterman Ready, and that was a good book. I read Midshipman Easy, that was also a good book. And currently, just today, I began reading The Settlers in Canada, also by him. So I was excited to find this in a very Captain Marryat mood. This one is a bit more generic in its plot summary. Here it is. Here's how the back describes it. Frank Mildmay is a rogue and a rascal who cuts a memorable swath as he moves up the ranks of the early 19th century Royal Navy. Whether seducing pretty girls ashore, braving hurricanes at sea, or scrambling aboard a French privateer with cutlass bared, Mildmay and his ventures live on. So, that just sounds like any other nautical fiction, and that's more or less what this is, I believe, but I'm definitely excited to read it. And this book was only $4. I sometimes see those Marryat books from that same series at bookstores. They're usually at least $6 or $6 to $8, so $4 is pretty good. Next book I bought is a bit of a rare, not a rare book to find, but a rare purchase from me. It's a more recent science fiction paperback by Clifford D. Simak, and this is Project Pope. Usually I don't buy a lot of these more recent science fiction guys just because I haven't read much by them. I kind of don't know where to start with a lot of them, but Clifford D. Simak I encountered recently in a science fiction compendium of short stories called Modern Classics of Science Fiction, edited by Sam Moskowitz, which I read in full recently, 500 pages. One of the stories that stood out in there was Huddling Place by Clifford D. Simak, which ended up in his book City, which is one of Sean D. Standfast's favorite books, of course. And that story really stuck with me. The mixture of emotions, the pastoral setting, realistic feeling, the somewhat low-stakes nature of it. I've heard he's very special at combining pastoral themes with science fiction. So I felt like I was in the mood to try him again, to get an actual book by him and to read it through and see what it's like. Of course, on this very well painted cover here, you can see some religious robots clearly dressed as, what is that? That's definitely like a priest or a pope, and it looks like this guy's taking off of a like Friar Tuck or something. I don't know, maybe I'm a Catholic, but maybe Catholicism is a bit different for them up in the stars. And the monk seems to be tending to a rose bush. Let's see what the back has to say. On the rim planet fittingly called the end of everything, a bizarre society of robots and humans toiled for 1,000 years to perfect a religion that would create a new and all-embracing faith. No novelty in a galaxy crowded with religions. But one project was hidden from the hordes of pilgrims welcomed at Vatican 17. Trained human sensitives were sending their minds ranging all through time and space, gathering all the information that could exist. With that information, a computer of infinite knowledge, wisdom, and infallibility was being constructed in secret. The ultimate Pope. I'm not sure that's what the Pope in real life is sort of going for, but it sounds good on the back of the box, so maybe it'll be different in the book. But let's move on. But now the project is being threatened by a young woman journalist on the trail of a sensational story. And, even more incredibly, by one of the Searcher sensitives who, while drifting in unsuspected dimensions, claims to have encountered heaven. So, yeah, sounds like a fun time to me. I look forward to it. The sense that I got from Huddling Place was a very, like, human and somewhat loving atmosphere. It's just a love for humanity, even though the story ends with somebody dying. And it's rather sad. I did feel that there's a more realistic edge to it. So I'm hoping to find more of that in this book. But even if it's not there, it can still be good. And if it's good, it's good. So that doesn't matter. Okay, next book is The Circus of Dr. Lau, which I have seen at other places before, but I haven't purchased, either because it was too expensive or it was a library, so it wasn't for sale. I'm pretty interested in this one. It sounds weird. The premise is about a Yellow Peril-style Chinese, like, carny with a whole menagerie of creatures, physical and exotic, and mythical and exotic, who come to some podunk town and just presents as creatures. And apparently the people who look at the creatures sort of see themselves reflected in the beasts. And, well, according to Wikipedia, by the end, the entire town is starting to worship at the altar of a pagan god. So that sounds very strange. Is this weird fiction? Like, I know H.P. Lovecraft and Clark Ashton Smith, I know all that's weird fiction. Does this count as weird fiction, too? I don't know anything about Charles G. Finney, but maybe it counts. Anyway, it sounds like a very, very fun time. I am excited to get into this. And it is also pretty short. What does this come in at? Yeah, my fucking humidifier turns on every once in a while. Just excuse that. It's only at about 118 pages. So, very excited to read this. I mean, I'm excited to read all of these. And just because I'm excited doesn't mean I'm going to read it soon. I'm excited to read all of the books that I own, but that doesn't mean I'm actually going to get around to them. Biting off more than I could chew in terms of TBRs. Anyway, next book I have, we're in the final three here. Daniel Defoe, Memoirs of a Cavalier. Now, I haven't read Daniel Defoe for a long time. In fact, I think the last book of his that I read was a full 2 years ago, and it was called A New Voyage Around the World by a path never before taken, or something like that. It was it was the same as all of other Daniel Defoe's books, where it's extremely realistic. That sort of lent to its verisimilitude and its enjoyment factor, except in that case that book was a little less enjoyable because less happened. Books like Robinson Crusoe and also Captain Singleton, super underrated. Lots of stuff happened in those books. Very action-packed adventure, just all through that book, and it feels so extremely realistic because that's what Daniel Defoe does best. Very interesting character in real life. He was a spy, he was a diplomat, he was everything under the sun. He had his finger on the pulse, what can I say? But all of his books are like that, and the back of this Oxford World's Classics edition really hammers that home. It talks more about how realistic the book is than what it is about itself. It seems to say that it's about a soldier of fortune, and I assume it's sort of a picaresque thing. I mean, I feel like that's what most literature was around the time, if it, of this kind. So I've been wanting to find this one for a while and picked it up just now. And this one was only $1 and what is that? 75 cents? $1.75, under $2. Oh, and by the way, the Circus of Dr. Lau was also $1.50. So together these are basically $3. That's insane, by the way. These two books will provide me hours of reading time, hours of fun and enjoyment, because they almost definitely will be interesting to read. And it's like half the price of a milkshake or something, which is gone in like minutes. The next book I got was The Splendid Spur by Sir Arthur Quiller Couch. And a nice painting of a corpse, a fresh cadaver right there. Anyway, this is a book that I found out about because of, Scribner's. They used to do that series of books that were like black hardcover books that had like illustrations on the inside done by N.C. Wyeth. And I saw one of those for The Splendid Spur. I don't know if it was actually N.C. Wyeth. It may have been some charlatan, some knockoff. But ever since then, I knew what The Splendid Spur was. I knew it was an adventure book. Since it was reprinted in that library, I believed it had some notoriety. Like, this is probably going to be good. And while at Lowry's, I found it in this cheap paperback version, which is actually a very nice, hefty thing. Comes in at around 287 reasonable pages. Oh, that was actually the last 2 pages of the book, by the way. So don't read those if you don't want Quiller Coochie to spoil the book for you. And to be spoiled for you. But I am happy that I found this. I actually found this the last time that I went to Lowry's Books about 6 months ago, but I didn't buy it. But I took a photo of it, as I always do. Books that are vaguely interesting to me, that pop out to me on the shelf, because often I just like to give them a chance to grow on me. And this one indeed did. I thought, why didn't I buy that? After all, this one was only $3. Oh, and now we're at the last book here. At this point, I was saying, well, I gotta get going. But I was still walking around, still looking around, because there's still so many hidden spots with so many hidden books, and you don't... Or books where I said, oh, I haven't looked there yet, and I just found the L. Frank Baum section in the hardcover fiction. So I picked up Queen Zixi of Ix, another book that I have seen before in other stores, other places, other times, other lives, but hadn't picked up yet. Here, it's one of these beautiful Dover reprints of the old L. Frank Baum books with wonderful illustrations going all throughout, which makes it very special in and of itself. I've read a number of books by L. Frank Baum before. I've read The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, and I've also read The Life and Adventures of Santa Claus. Those are both very good books. I also own the, what's it called? The Emerald City of Oz. Maybe a few others. Actually, no, I don't think any others. And, well, what I've heard said about L. Frank Baum is that people don't like how he's so serious. But that's exactly what I like about him. I think that as children's books, I like that he takes fairy tales and children's material very seriously. He imbues a lot of serious world building and character backstories and well, not so much emotion, but uh, realism into the settings of something like a fairy tale. Treats it very seriously, like the life and adventures of Santa Claus. That's a very Tolkienian epic. There's dragons and monsters, and there's epic battles and stuff like that, and it's all taken very, very stern, very, very stiff upper lip, that whole book. That's exactly what I liked about The Wizard of Oz, too, and the aforementioned Santa Claus book. That's what I expect here, and that's what I think is going to be interesting about it. The back of the book says that this quotes L. Frank Baum saying that this is his best effort, and in some ways could be considered his best book. So I have high expectations for this one. There's plenty of Oz sequels around. I may read some of those, but in the meantime, some of his other works seem interesting, such as Queen Zixi, and this one comes in at only $5. Most expensive book of the haul, ew. There was this one other book called Cuore, which is the Italian word for heart, that I was thinking of picking up. That would have been $20, because it's like a nice old vintage book with the halftone illustrations and stuff. I know, $20. That's not even that expensive. Most new books are more expensive than that. And for an antiquarian book, that's pretty good. But I don't like spending money for things. I don't like spending money. And just to put it in perspective, this entire book haul I had was only $22. That one book would have doubled the price of this entire thing, brought it up to $42. I hope you can understand I didn't want to do that. Besides, I was like thinking it over and like wondering if I actually wanted to read it, if it was the kind of thing I even wanted to read. No, just especially in the face of me getting so many books and already having so many books, I just thought maybe it's time to let it marinate. Just let it stew. When I go back to Lowry's books, probably in 6 months, it'll probably still be there. They always are. So, turnover isn't that high. So, basically, that was my entire haul at Lowry's. When it came to books, there's still one or two other things to show. Here's all of them side by side. A lot of people like to do a quick recap, so let's do one now. Tom Brown's School Days, $2. The Talisman, $2. Frank Mildmay, $4. Project Pope, $1.50. The Circus of Dr. Lau, Yellow Peril, $1.50. The Memoirs of a Cavalier, Daniel Defoe, $1.50. The Splendid Spur by Arthur Quillard Cucci, $3. And Queen Zixi of Ick, $5. So remember at the beginning when I said that there was like a wheel that you spin and you get like goodie bags and stuff? Well, I did spin that wheel. What I got was free book. Now, I saw free book on the wheel and I was wondering, well, what does that mean? Do they have a free book behind the counter that they just like hand to you? Does it mean one of the books in your haul becomes for free? Which at Lowry's, of course, wouldn't mean much because most of these books are only like $1. So I was wondering what that meant. It turns out I got free book, and it just says there's like a box of books like on the floor behind the counter that you go and you pick up a free book from, which I have to say, there's a mountain of free books outside the store, which are infinitely more, well, okay, they're more valuable to me than the books in the box, because the books in the box are mostly like new books, which I'm sure were very useful to somebody because, as I said earlier, new books are expensive. But for a second, I was having a lot of difficulty because it was like a box this big. Like, wasn't even that much choice. But I found something that not only I could see myself reading, but actually has a special connection to my interests. So in a way, I was extremely lucky to find The Seventh Voyage of Eon Tiki by Stanislaw Lem. I actually own this book, like the novelized version of it, not this graphic novel version. I just haven't read it yet. And now apparently this is an uncorrected proof, not for sale. Whoopsie! Well, it's not for sale. I got it for free. But I hope you could understand. I was very happy to find this because it's Stanislaw Lem. and I like Stanislaw Lem. As I'm sure you've seen on this channel before, because I talked about Fiasco, and I didn't read, not that I love Fiasco, but I sure didn't read it because I hated Stanislaw Lem. Don't want to spend too long showing the art, but I mean, I feel like you got to with a graphic novel like this. So yeah, I got this book for free. That's very fun. I don't know when exactly I'll read this. I'll read it at some point. Almost done. But there's actually one more thing to show, and it's not at all a book. Because if you've been to Lowry's books, you know it is the length of a good 3 or 4 vintage storefronts from, like, you know, the 1800s, late 1800s, like early 1900s. Awesome building, by the way. But one of those storefronts is actually occupied half by books, the other half by toys, and a little cookie shop. I got something from that toys section. And I will show you start off by showing you the box, but I do have the toy here. It's this Playmobil and Divers set. It only costs $10, and I'm not going to spend too long on it. I just want to show you, just for the sake of completion, like, look at these fishies. Look at them. I love them. I love all that stuff. And the sea turtle, little sea turtle babies. It came with 2 of them. Little starfish, seahorse. I love this kind of stuff. I've always just loved underwater stuff, like, as a rule, and especially now that it's summer, it's sort of it just makes you feel like cooling down. Just makes you feel like swimming in the water with the fishies. I kind of like having this stuff on display. So yeah, that's it for this video. A very good book haul. I love going to the Lowry's. I love getting book hauls there. Always leave a huge armful of books. Oh, could barely walk. Oh. But I always come out of it finding something new, finding something that I wanted. Actually, yeah, you know, this time I actually did find a thing that I didn't know existed before. I found the Project Pope and the Talisman by Sir Walter Scott. I always value that experience even more than finding something that I already wanted. And that never doesn't happen when you go to Lowry's. Anyway, thank you for watching, YouTube. Goodbye. Also, I'm sorry for the ugly background.